Hello and welcome to my Specialization Introduction and Outdoor Content Guide for the Elemental Shaman in World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth. If you haven't watched the primer video for this series, I recommend that you do that now. There'll be a link in the description below, and that video will get you up to speed on what we're doing in this video. So, we're here on our Elemental Shaman. We've got our action bars visible and empty. If we hop into our talent tree, these are the talents you can select to fulfill the requirements laid out in the primer video. And with all that ready, we're going to jump into our spell book and start organizing our spells. Now, I won't be going in depth into every single one of these spells, but I will give you at least a brief description of what they do so that you can understand their function and why we're putting them where we are. So we're starting out with Ancestral Spirit. That is our single target resurrection spell. It will allow us to resurrect a dead friendly player, but we can only use it out of combat, so we'll put it in miscellaneous. Astral Recall will act as another Hearthstone, so wherever you have your Hearthstone set, you can cast this spell instead of using the charge on your Hearthstone. It's got a 10-minute cooldown, so it's a nice way to utilize that ability a lot more often. Astral Shift is a defensive cooldown that gives us some damage reduction. Capacitor Totem will stun all targets in its area of effect after a couple seconds. Chain Lightning is part of our core rotation. Cleanse Spirit will remove a curse from a friendly target. It's a combat utility spell we probably won't use very often in the outdoors. Earth Elemental is a defensive cooldown. It summons a big elemental that will tank for us and protect us. Earth Shock is part of our core rotation. Earthbind Totem will slow enemies in its area of effect. It's a crowd control ability. Earthquake is part of our core rotation. Farsight's a fun ability that lets us look at a location far off in the distance. We can use that out of combat. That's a miscellaneous ability. Fire Elemental is an offensive cooldown ability. It calls out a fire elemental that will deal a lot of damage and also help us to generate some of our primary resource. Flame Shock is part of our core rotation. Frost Shock is a crowd control ability. It does some damage and then will reduce the target's movement speed. Ghost Wolf is a combat utility ability. We transform into a Ghost Wolf and this will increase our movement speed. Healing Surge is a combat utility ability that allows us to restore some of our health. Heroism is a offensive cooldown ability. This will grant us, party members, and raid members a bunch of haste. Then it goes on a long cooldown and we can't be affected by it again for a while. Hex will turn your target into a frog, basically preventing them from doing anything. However, damage can break the effect. That is a crowd control ability. Lava Burst and Lightning Bolt are part of our core rotation. Purge is a combat utility ability we probably won't use too much, but it will remove a beneficial magic effect from a target. Thunderstorm is, you can put this under crowd control or defensive tools. I put it under defensive tools. It calls down a bolt of lightning, which does a little bit of damage, but it also will knock back enemies and reduce their movement speed, so I use it as a, hey, get away from me kind of button. And we have Water Walking. This allows us to walk on water. Damage will cancel the effect, so most of the time we're going to be using it out of combat to travel from place to place. So we'll put that in our miscellaneous section. And then finally we have Wind Shear. This is our interrupt ability. It interrupts spell casting, so we put that in our crowd control section. And that's it. That's all of the default active abilities for the Shaman. So next thing we're going to do is talk about the resources available. As an Elemental Shaman, you have access to two resources. The first is going to be mana. You have a certain amount of mana, usually based on your intellect or something like that, and you spend mana to cast spells. Out in the open world, it's not really a resource because it almost never will run out, but if it does run out for some reason, there'll be some spells that you're not able to cast. Our main resource, however, is going to be Maelstrom. You start combat with 0 Maelstrom. You can build all the way up to 100 by casting your spells and abilities, and then you spend Maelstrom on other spells and abilities. So that's the resources available to the Elemental Shaman. Let's jump in and take a look at the core rotation and how that's going to play out for us. So we're going to want to open up combat by casting Flame Shock. Flame Shock has a short cooldown. It will deal a little bit of fire damage to the target. Then it will add a damage over time debuff that does a significant amount of fire damage over 18 seconds. So we'll want to put that on our target, get that damage taken away right away. After that, we're going to want to build up Maelstrom so that we can spend it on our hard-hitting abilities, and we're going to do that mainly by casting one of two abilities. So the first ability that we could cast is our Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt is a single target spell. It has a short cast time. It does a little bit of damage, and it will generate 8 Maelstrom. Alright, so if we're fighting against a single target, we use our Lightning Bolt. If we are fighting multiple targets, then we can hit Chain Lightning. This has the same cast time as Lightning Bolt, and it will deal a little bit of damage, and then it will jump to other enemies. So it will hit multiple enemies in an area, and it will affect up to 5 total targets. So you may say, well, why don't you just use that one anyway? Well, the reason is it will generate 4 Maelstrom per target hit. So if you are fighting 2 enemies, it generates the same amount of Maelstrom as a Lightning Bolt. If you're fighting 3 or more, then you're better off using Chain Lightning to generate more Maelstrom, because you can generate up to 20 Maelstrom with Chain Lightning, single Chain Lightning. However, against a single target, you want to use that Lightning Bolt because you're getting that 8 Maelstrom in the same amount of cast time that with Chain Lightning, you would only be getting 4. So you want to use Chain Lightning against 2 or more targets. Against a single target, you want to use Lightning Bolt. Now, we do have another ability that will generate Maelstrom for us, and this is Lava Burst. Lava Burst will hurl molten lava at the target. It will always critically strike if the target's affected by our flame shock. I almost said flame shock or strike. That's the enhancement shaman ability, flame shock, and it generates 10 Maelstrom, so a good amount. And I may actually move these over here. There we go. So Lava Burst has an 8-second cooldown. Now, generally speaking, what you're going to want to do is Flame Shock, Lava Burst. That goes on cooldown, and then if you're fighting one target, you hit Lightning Bolt. Multiple targets, you're hitting Chain Lightning. Now, the reason I left Lava Burst to the end is because of a passive ability available to the Elemental Shaman that we'll talk about after we show off the core rotation. So, don't be confused by that. Now, after we have built up our Maelstrom, we're going to want to spend it on abilities. We have 2 abilities that we're mainly going to be spending our Maelstrom on. The first one is Earth Shock. Earth Shock takes 60 Maelstrom, and it hits a single target for a pretty significant amount of damage. A nice, hefty chunk of damage. The other ability we can spend our Maelstrom on would be Earthquake. It also costs 60 Maelstrom, but the difference is this will hit multiple targets within 8 yards. Still dealing a good amount of damage and also potentially knocking down some enemies. I love these bells. So if you're fighting a single target or you have a single target you really want to prioritize getting rid of, you'll want to spend your Maelstrom on Earth Shock. Otherwise, if you're fighting multiple targets and you kind of want to deal damage to all of them, you will spend it on Earthquake. So let's go down and take a look at how this is going to play out. And remember, we're a ranged class, so all these abilities work from pretty far away. So we will get our target. We're going to cast our Flame Shock. Then we're going to cast our Lava Burst, get that going. And then against a single target, we're going to start casting Lightning Bolts. And we're going to want to make sure that we keep Flame Shock up on our target. Anytime Lava Burst comes off cooldown, we want to hit that. Get our Flame Shock back up. And we are building up until we get to our Earth Shock, and then we will cast that on our target. Alright, so that's the rotation for a single target. Against multiple targets, so say we're going to fight both of these, you have a couple options. The first thing you can do is just focus on one target and get your Flame Shock up on that target. The second is to do a little bit of what's called multi-dotting, which is trying to put your Flame Shock on all the targets you're fighting. So I'll go ahead and show that off real quick. So you'll target, usually you want to target your secondary target, not the main one. Throw on your Flame Shock, then switch to your primary target, and go ahead and cast that Flame Shock again. And then we're going to start casting our Lava Burst on our main target, and then we fill with Chain Lightning. So you're going to see we're going to hit 3 targets here. This is going to build up our Maelstrom a lot faster. And then at this point, you probably want to focus on just having your Flame Shock up on your primary target. And so we're building up to Earthquake, and when you cast Earthquake, it puts out this big targeted AoE, and you can drop that, and you'll see there's that Earthquake going off, dealing damage to all these targets, and providing a chance for them to be knocked down. And that's it. Now, personally, I don't worry about trying to multi-dot on Elemental Shaman, especially with the base rotation here, because you've got that 6-second cooldown on Flame Shock. But it's something you can do for fun or just for practice with rapidly targeting different targets. But I personally would just go pick my main target, Flame Shock, hit that Lava Burst, go right into Chain Lightning, and then as soon as we've built up enough for an Earthquake, we'll use that. Anytime Lava Burst comes off cooldown, we'll cast that. And anytime we need to do our Flame Shock on our main target, we'll do that as well. Throw out that Earthquake, and there we go. Alright, so you're probably wondering what these graphics are here on the side of my character and why my Lava Burst is shiny sometimes. And that brings us to those passive abilities that I had mentioned earlier that the Elemental Shaman has. So we've got 4 passive abilities here. This first one, Reincarnation. All Shamans have this. It allows you to resurrect yourself upon death with 20% health and mana, and you can do that once every 30 minutes. So when you die, you'll get a prompt on your screen, and when you're ready, you can hit it and come back to life. Next we have Elemental Fury. Your damaging critical strikes deal 250% damage instead of the usual 200%, so our critical strikes strike harder. Then we have our Elemental Mastery. This is Elemental Overload. Your Lightning Bolt, Elemental Blast, and Ice Fury, which are talented abilities. Lava Burst and Chain Lightning, so all of our Maelstrom builders have a chance to trigger a second cast on the same target for 85% normal damage, and they generate less Maelstrom than the primary spell did. So every time we cast Lightning Bolts, Lava Burst, or Chain Lightning, we have a chance to cast an extra spell that will deal some damage and generate some Maelstrom for us. And then the graphics that you saw in the flashing Lava Burst, that comes from Lava Surge. So your Flame Shock damage over time, and this is why we want to have Flame Shock up on a target, and why sometimes it is good to go ahead and put that Flame Shock on multiple targets, is because your Flame Shock damage over time has a 15% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on Lava Burst and cause your next Lava Burst to be instant cast. So as our Lava Burst is cooling down, every tick of that Flame Shock damage is going to give us a 15% chance to be able to cast that next Lava Burst right away, regardless of what the cooldown on it was, and cast it instantly. So if you've got your Flame Shock up on one target, that's usually enough to get several of those Lava Surge procs. But if you've got it up on a couple of targets, you have increased chances to be able to get that, and that can help you to burn through multiple targets. So it is a little bit of a hassle trying to do that multi-dotting stuff with a 6-second cooldown on your Flame Shock, but sometimes if you're fighting enemies that have a lot of health, it's worth it. If you're fighting enemies that are going to die pretty quickly, probably not worth it. So let's go down real quick and we'll take a look at that Lava Surge and see if we can catch our Elemental Overload going off as well. So we're going to put that Flame Shock up there, and we're just going to let that tick. We'll put it up on this target too. See if we can get a proc of our Lava Surge. It's not one to cooperate. Come on, I'm trying to demo this stuff here. There we go, there it is. So you'll see this graphic around you. You'll have Lava Surge. We're all shiny, so we can, boom, instant cast our Lava Burst. And like I said, this has a chance to, it will reset the cooldown if it's on cooldown, so you can cast it right away. So next, let's see if we can show off some of those Elemental Overloads. There we go, that one. We cast one time, and our Lightning Bolt right there. There you go, we did it again. So pretty high chance to be able to get that double cast of your Lightning Bolts Lava Surge, or Lava Burst, and your Chain Lightning. I'll probably mess up that name like several times. But yeah, that is the basic rotation of the Elemental Shaman. So next, we're going to jump into our talent tree, and we're going to create a talent build that is good in open world content. So I'm going to set that up now. Let's see. That's pretty straightforward. Alright, so this is the build that I recommend you use in outdoor content. It's not the only one that you could use, but it's the one I recommend, and we'll be showing off at the end of this video. So we're going to go into each of the talents, and we're going to talk about what they do and why we've chosen them. So first off, we have Echo of the Elements. Lava Burst now has 2 charges. Effects that reset its remaining cooldown will instead grant 1 charge. So this gives us the ability to put out more burst with our Lava Burst if we want to. Also, if we do happen to get our Lava Surge, if say we get 1 tick of Flame Shock damage, it gives us Lava Surge, and then right after that, the next one gives it to us. This will build up charges for us so we don't waste those procs of this ability. So it's nice to be able to burst something down with 2 of our Lava Bursts because it does a good amount of damage. And generates a nice amount of Maelstrom for us as well. It's also nice not to miss those Lava Surge procs when they do happen. Next, we have Totem Mastery, and I just put this ability down in my combat utility, and we're going to take a look at this one. So this will, when you click it, it'll put down 4 totems. This ability is instant cast, it doesn't cost anything, and it has no cooldown. So what happens is these totems will give you buffs, and these buffs have a 40-yard range, and if for some reason you were to run outside of the area of effect of those buffs, like we did here, you can simply recast Totem Mastery and you are back in business. So we're going to move this back up here, and then we're going to talk about what each of these totems gives us. So we have our Storm Totem. That's going to give us an increased chance for Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning to trigger Elemental Overload. So we'll have 5% increased chance, and right now I have we've got 36.8% chance. So before with these totems down, we have 31. So 5% increased chance to get that bonus cast Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning. So that's going to help us generate more Maelstrom. That's going to help us deal more damage. Just a nice buff overall. Then we have our Resonance Totem. And that one is going to generate 1 Maelstrom every 1 second for us. Now you can see that it is doing that here. But Maelstrom, if you're not in combat, will naturally just decay back down to 0. So it's kind of generating 1, 2, and then it's going back down. But while we're in combat, this will help to build up some Maelstrom for us consistently. We have our Ember Totem. This increases Flame Shock damage over time by 10%, and since we are putting that on our main target, possibly multiple targets, that's a 10% damage increase on that ability that we're definitely going to be using. And then finally we have Tailwind Totem. That will increase our haste by 2%, so we will cast our abilities faster. So just a nice all-around set of buffs. Doesn't cost anything, it's instant cast, there's no cooldown, so you can constantly have this active. Next, we have Spirit Wolf. While transformed into a Ghost Wolf, you gain 5% increased movement speed and 5% damage reduction every 1 second, stacking up to 4 times. So when we go into Ghost Wolf, we naturally get 30% increased movement speed. And we'll start to build up our Spirit Wolf buff. And now we're at 50% movement speed, which is great for getting around in quest areas. Also, we'll have that 20% damage reduction. And that's going to be nice if we're trying to run out of an area or run through some enemies. All those, long-range attacks that they're doing to try and stop us and slow us down are going to do 20% less damage, which means we will have less damage to recover or more health to work with when we actually do stop to fight our next group of enemies. Next, we have High Voltage. Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning have a 50% of normal chance to cause a second Elemental Overload. So now, not only do we have our normal chance to cast to get Elemental Overload from Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning. We also have our Totems down, which increases that chance by 5%. And now high voltage means we have a 50% of that chance to cast another elemental overload. So with this, we have a chance when we cast Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning to actually cast 3 spells with 1 cast of our abilities, which can deal a massive amount of damage and also generate a lot of Maelstrom. Next, we have Nature's Guardian. This ability, when your health is brought below 35%, you instantly heal for 20% of your maximum health. This can occur every 45 seconds, so pretty frequently. So if you ever get into a sticky situation out in the open world, you can kind of count on Nature's Guardian to give you a nice boost in your health. So you hit 34% health, you get boosted up to 54%. Because of this ability, and that gives you a little more leeway in trying to heal yourself up back to full, or just that little bit of extra damage put into your target so you can kill them off. It's just a nice kind of safety net ability to have. If you don't feel like you need it, then feel free to pick either one of the totems or either one of the talents on this tier. I just think that overall for outdoor content, Nature's Guardian is very nice to have. Next, we have Earth and Rage. Your damaging spells, which is basically everything we're using to kill stuff, incite the earth around you to come to your aid for 6 seconds, repeatedly dealing 160 nature damage to your most recently attacked target. So as we are casting these damaging abilities on our target, we're going to be summoning these earth spikes that are going to shoot into the target and deal even more damage. So not only do we get to increase our damage, but it looks pretty cool too. And then finally, we have Unlimited Power. When your spells cause an elemental overload, which we've already covered all the ways that we not only have increased overload chance, but the chance to proc an extra elemental overload, you gain 2% haste for 10 seconds. Gaining a stack does not refresh the duration, but this is just a constantly building stack of haste that we can gain. So our rotation doesn't really change because of this. Okay, we're going to be looking out for those extra overloads, so we want to be casting a lot of Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning, and our Earth and Rage is going to passively help us out. So let's take a look at the rotation with those new talents added in. So we cast our Flame Shock, which remember is going to deal increased damage over time because of our totems. So we'll put those down. So we'll hit our Flame Shock, and then we're going to hit our Lava Burst. And we'll start going into our Lightning Bolt. And look out. There we go. We got 2 casts on that one. 2 casts on that one. Trying to see if we can get a 3rd cast. But you can see we're generating Maelstrom way faster than we were before we had this talent build. So let's go ahead and dump that with Earth Shock. And you can see the earthen spikes. There we go. They're shooting into the target. There, we got a 3 proc right there. Let's see if we can get one more. That was a 2. One. We got 2 on that one. 2 on that one. Now, this here is telling you that, hey, your Earth Shock has built up. You have maximum Maelstrom. You should probably spend it on something. Alright, and then also our Chain Lightning has a chance to cast multiple times. So you can see we got 2 casts on that one there. So we're at maximum Maelstrom again, so it's telling us, hey, spend it. So we'll do that. And that is pretty much the build. So have your totems up. Do your normal rotation. You have an increased chance to get those elemental overloads. And we can let's take a look at here's our unlimited power. So we got 4% haste. and that will continue to build up as we get those elemental overloads. So that is it for the talent build. The next thing to do is to talk about the PvP talents you can take if you want to toggle on PvP, War Mode, and then mainly participate in PvE. So first off, I recommend that you take Relentless. This will replace your Honorable Medallion. It will make it a passive ability that reduces the duration of all incoming crowd control effects by 20%. Nice set it and forget it ability. Then we have Control Lava. This will replace your Lava Surge, which we're using here. It will increase Lava Burst damage, or sorry, this will replace Lava Surge, which is our passive ability, and it will increase Lava Burst damage by 25%. And your Flame Shock damage over time has a 10% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on Lava Burst and increases damage by 25%, stacking up to 3 times. So before, our Lava Surge had a 15% chance to reset the cooldown and make it instant cast. This makes it so that by default, Lava Burst will deal 25% damage, and there will be a 10% chance with Flame Shock damage to reset the cooldown, and instead of making it instant cast, it will increase the damage by 25%, stacking up to 3 times. So what this means is that now we can still reset the cooldown, but instead of being instant cast, we can get double damage with our lava burst. Next, we have Lightning Lasso. This is a 30-second cooldown channeled ability. This will grip the target in lightning, stunning them and dealing a ton of damage over 6 seconds. So not only is this a nice stun, but every 30 seconds you can deal a ridiculous amount of damage to a target. This is going to be great on rare spawns and elites. Next, we have Spectral Recovery. While in Ghost Wolf, you heal 3% health every 2 seconds, and this increases the movement speed of Ghost Wolf by an additional 10%. So, when we go into Ghost Wolf, we've got our 30% movement speed, then because of Spirit Wolf, we get another 20%, so 50% movement speed. Because of Spectral Recovery, another 10%, so we get a total of 60% movement speed in Ghost Wolf, 20% damage reduction, and we heal 3% health every 2 seconds. So this one button here for Ghost Wolf becomes this like power utility ability that we can use to increase our movement, reduce damage, and heal ourselves. So those are the PvP talents I recommend if you're going to toggle on War Mode, mainly focus on PvE. I want to add in the caveat here before we get to the gameplay that Blizzard has stated that Elemental Shaman is one of the classes that is going to need an update, and they're planning one for patch 8.1. So if you're not overly impressed by what you see here, there will be some changes coming. That said, it does not play poorly, so you don't need to avoid it. Just know that Blizzard is planning on making some changes in the next big patch for Battle for Azeroth. So, that being said, the next thing to do is take this build out into the open world, try it against some different enemies. So, I'm going to cut to that, and I'll see you there. Alright, so we're here in Suramar City, and we're just going to fly down and try out this build against some different enemies. So, let's go ahead and do that. So don't forget that we're going to want to put down our Totem Mastery so we can get those buffs from our totems. And then we're going to open up with our Flame Shock and then cast our first Lava Burst. There we go. Now we did get a free Lava Burst. That's going to come off of cooldown pretty quickly. So let's see if we can cast that on a target here. Now this is kind of wasted because Lava Burst doesn't do a lot of damage on its own. A lot of its power comes from the fact that it's a guaranteed critical strike against a target that has Flame Shock on it. So you're going to want to try to make sure that you are Flame Shocking a target before you cast Lava Burst. So like right here, if I cast Lava Burst on this guy with no Flame Shock, it did critical that time, just naturally, so that's good. So we are building up our Maelstrom. We've got pretty much maximum Maelstrom, so we'll go ahead and use an Earth Shock on that guy. As you can see, that didn't even crit, and it does a significant amount of damage. Let's go ahead and we'll Flame Shock that guy. We will Lava Burst. Alright, cast our lightning bolts. We got another target attacking us, and that's fine. So we'll go ahead and flame shock this one. Lava burst, that should give us an earth shock, and he's already dead. Alright, so as you can see, it's pretty good against single target when you're going from enemy to enemy. Remember that you do have your heal. If you need to top yourself off in between combat, that costs you mana. So you can use that. And then also, don't forget to reset up your totems. So we're going to put our totems here. And we're going to try to pull a couple of people here. We're going to try to pull this whole group so we can show off our chain lightnings here. Alright, so chain lightning. We've got enough for earthquake, so we're going to cast that. Cast our lightning, our lava burst. There we go. So really no problem in taking out those enemies there. We didn't use any cooldowns, defensive or offensive, just the buffs from our totems, and then we made sure that we pretty much straight away started casting our lightning, our chain lightning, and then rolling that into earthquake. Now this target here has a little bit more health, so let's see what we can do against this guy. We're gonna lava burst. Start casting our lightning bolts. We've got enough for an earth shock, so we'll use that. We'll use our free lava burst. Go ahead. Use that free lava burst again. Now we are getting low, so we could heal ourselves. We could cast Astral Shift. That's going to give us some damage reduction. Go ahead and earth shock again. Alright, there we go. So he had a little bit more health. He does a little bit more damage, so we'll want to go ahead, heal ourselves up. And let's show up. Yep, so we're going to go ahead and cast our Fire Elemental and our Earth Elemental. We'll use our Thunderstorm here to kind of knock those guys away from us. We're going to put Flame Shock up on a target, start casting our Lightning, our Lava Burst, go into our Chain Lightning. We've got enough for a Earthquake. We're silenced, so we can't do anything right now. But we will cast our Earthquake. There we go. Get our Flame Shock back up on this guy. Go ahead and cast a Lava Burst. He's down, and we're good. So, I probably didn't need to use both of these guys, but I wanted to. I wanted to show them off. So in that situation, I could have gotten away with just casting the Earth Elemental to take some of the attention away from me while I did damage to all these targets here, but I did want to show off the Fire Elemental. So the Earth Elemental has a 5-minute cooldown. It's a pretty long cooldown, but he'll come out, he'll tank, he'll protect you. You can see he stays out for quite a while, a whole minute, whereas the Fire Elemental comes out for 30 seconds, but only has a 2.5-minute cooldown. So you can pop those if you find yourself in a bad situation. Also, I wanted to show off the Thunderstorm there, kind of knocking everyone away from me and said, hey, get away from me so I can have a chance to figure out what the heck I'm doing. And ultimately there, I wanted to make sure that I have my totems out as well. But when things get chaotic, you do the best that you can. So let's go ahead and we will fly up here. We'll kill off this rare spawn. So we'll go down here. We're going to cast. We're just going to go straight into Chain Lightning. If we get enough for an Earthquake, we can cast that, and that should kill them off. Alright, and then we'll heal up. Drop our totems, and we can go ahead and take on this target here. This is a rare spawn, so we will Flame Shock into Lava Burst, into Lightning Bolts. We're going to build up our Lightning Bolts into an Earth Shock. Back to our Lava Burst. Lightning Bolt, and dead. So lots of good single target. You've got tools and utility for multi-target as well. You've got your defensive cooldowns if you need to use those. A couple nice offensive cooldowns too. And that's it. That is the Elemental Shaman. I hope you've got a better understanding of how it'll play. I hope this has given you the confidence to get on your own Elemental Shaman, get out there and start trying to level, quest, and farm. See if it's a specialization you'd like to play in Battle for Azeroth. If you like the video, throw me a like, subscribe, whatever you want to do to keep encouraging me to make this content. And outside of that, I hope you have a good time in Battle for Azeroth, and thanks for watching.